Morning all. All right, we're starting off today talking about the Dallas Stars and the season that could be, the season that might be, the season that may be. And I don't know where I'm at with this team. I'm kind of in the same spot as the channel. The channel seems to be torn on where they think this team's going to finish. And I don't think anybody's getting this wrong. Third, fourth, yeah, I could see it. Fifth, sixth, I could see it. There's a lot of things that still have yet to come together, coalesce for the Dallas Stars, but there's only a certain amount of time left in the offseason. We got to get things going. So if you look at the exits for the Dallas Stars, first off, now Bonus isn't on the list because he's the coach, and I'm not listing, when the coach is gone as an exit. But it's going to be interesting to see how this team does offensively. They've added Peter DeBoer as the coach because they need goals. This is about getting goals out of a team that has not been producing goals for, it feels like, forever. Now, their exits, Alexander Radulov, we knew last year was Radulov's last in Dallas, likely his last in the NHL. Michael Raffl is already signed in Europe. Braden Holtby, not likely to play this season, may be forced to retire. Andrei Sekera has retired, and John Klingberg, it feels like played around with how much his contract might be in for too much, and Dallas ends up not re-signing him. He ends up going to Anaheim. That does hurt their defense. That absolutely does. Because if you look at the new faces, they have Mason Marchment, who I think is going to be a steal. But there's still something to be proven there, too. Because for Marchment, he had a fantastic year in Florida. But maybe it was just a fantastic year in Florida. We'll see if he follows it up, right? That is a question mark. And then Colin Miller's been added on the blue line. Now, one name I've got on the board in red, a rookie that might push his way onto this roster, is Logan Stankoven. Stankoven's been playing for Team Canada at the World Juniors. He looks ready, but again, until we see him on NHL ice against NHL level talent, you just don't know. So the tandem in net, Jake Ottinger and Scott Wedgwood. Great. Wedgwood was really good after Dallas picked him up. I'm fine with them keeping him around. Ottinger needs a contract. And this is that cloud that's kind of hanging over the Stars right now. If we look at their last 5 years, 2017, 2018, they finished 42, 32, and 8. They missed the playoffs that year. 18th in goals for and 7th in goals against. 2018, 2019, they actually make the playoffs with one extra point. They actually finished 43, 32, and 7 that year. So they were also 29th in goals for and 2nd in goals against. This team has known how to keep the puck out of its own net. It has had trouble putting the puck in the other net. 2019-2020, they finished 37, 24, and 8. They finished 28th in goals for, and once again, 2nd in goals against. But that's the thing, right? They go to the Stanley Cup final. They lose against Tampa Bay. But all that did, I felt like what that did in part was it kind of covered up for the offensive issues the team's been having for quite a while. But the offense does get better in part because of Pavelski's line. Okay, because of Pavelski's line, right? You got Pavelski, you got Hintz, you got Robertson. Those two are pretty good together. 2020, 2021, however, Dallas falls back in the standings 23, 19, and 14. Yeah, once it was overtime or a shootout, Dallas wasn't winning. They were 18th in goals for, they were 9th in goals against. So their goals against dropped back. Then 2021, 2022, the season that we just finished, 46, 30, and 6 was their record. 21st in goals for, 13th in goals against. So the numbers, honestly, trending in the wrong direction, but the team trending in the right direction gets into the playoffs before being eliminated in the first round. And we're left to ask the question of, was Calgary's attack really anemic, or was Jake Ottinger that good? And I think there's an argument to be made for both of those items. The one thing with Ottinger, I think he's capable of being that good, but have we seen it over a full regular season? We have not. So I understand why at this point he's not signed. Jason Robertson, if he's asking for a huge long-term contract, he deserves it, to be honest. But for Dallas, it's tricky because without Robertson and Ottinger being signed, they currently have $10,335,834 in cap space, which is why there were a lot of rumors before free agency started that maybe Ottinger signing an offer sheet would be something that Dallas would struggle to match. They just don't have very much cap space. Now, We'll see how much money it costs them to keep Robertson and Ottinger, and it might cause them to have to strip something off this roster, make some other change, because most of the league's in cap trouble. It's funny because this is one of those teams that has more than 10 million in cap space. So when I talk about teams that are over the cap and at the cap, Dallas should be on the list because, again, that 10.3 million, that's going to disappear quickly with Robertson and Ottinger getting signed. If Robertson's asking for a cap hit similar to Kaprizov's in Minnesota, he's probably right. Now, down the middle, Dallas looks pretty good. You've got Rope Hintz as the number one center, Jamie Benn, or Tyler Seguin as the number two center. Doesn't matter who's playing down the middle. Although Ben, I think, is more comfortable at this point in his career playing a center than on the wing. Radek Faksa, good third-line center. You might want a few extra goals from a third-line center, but it's fine. And Jacob Peterson, who's been good since being called up. So, down the middle, I think the Stars are pretty solid. They're obviously going to be looking for a bounce back from Ben, from Seguin. If they can get a bounce back from Ben and Seguin, both, this team might be in pretty good shape. That being said, from month to month, you never really knew what you were going to get. The worst month they had last season was October. They were 3-4-1. Their best month was the month after. They were 8-3-1 in November. So it really is a team that was not overly consistent. They got into the playoffs in large part because Vegas couldn't close out in the last week of the season. Otherwise, Vegas would have got in and we would be talking about Dallas having missed the playoffs. So we get to the channel vote. And I get why. Again, this is as it is. 3% of the Hockey Channel say they finished first or second. 6% of the Entertainment Guy. On the third or fourth place vote, 45% of the channel voted them to be third or fourth. 34% on the Entertainment Guy. On this channel, 48% have them fifth or sixth in the division. 53% have them fifth or sixth in the division on the Entertainment Guy. And on the main channel here, 7th or 8th, 4% has them 7th or 8th. And on the Entertainment Guy, it's 6%. So they had 20,000 plus votes on the Hockey Guy channel, 937 votes on the Entertainment Guy. It's interesting to me looking at some of the vote counts, and it's clear that there's some fan bases that have voted in much larger numbers than others. And it doesn't necessarily mean Dallas fans either. Maybe it's fans of other teams saying, look, we're just going to vote Dallas down. But either way, I totally understand why 52% of the Hockey Channel has them at 5th or lower, and 59% of the Entertainment Guy channel. I totally get it. And you know what? If they don't get Robertson and Ottinger signed, if they miss the start of camp, if this kind of thing takes place, this could be a tough scenario for a brand new coach in Peter DeBoer and a team that doesn't have a ton of depth, either in net or when it comes to scoring. Their Stanley Cup odds are currently listed as plus 4,500, so they're right around the middle of the pack on that. I've talked about their cap space. We could talk about their top four on the blue line. You've got Ryan Suter, mixed reports on how well he did in his first year in Dallas. I didn't think he was as bad as some think, but he's not the same player he was, say, 10 years ago. Miro Heiskanen is fantastic. Love Heiskanen's game. This is, I really think, a golden age when it comes to defensemen in the NHL. Esa Lindell, good top four defenseman. And probably Colin Miller slips in there, although Hakanpää might end up in that top four spot. Miller has a little bit more offense than Hakanpää does, but this is where they miss Klingberg, right? You could roll Heiskanen and then Klingberg. And that was kind of the idea, was you'd have a scoring defenseman on the ice at all times. And now that's not going to be the case. So for a team that's looking to add goals, it'll be interesting to see if Thomas Harley might jump into the breach a little bit. So on the breakthrough candidate side of things, I got Thomas Harley because I like the player and I think he's due for a bit of a jump. And Dallas, if he switches to his offside, he could end up in that top four spot with Lindell. It's unusual for a left-hand defenseman to play on the right and a right-hand defenseman to play on the left. They don't like to do that, but it does happen. Jake Ottinger, I have listed as a breakthrough candidate because if he can have the kind of regular season that he had, if he could play anywhere near the level he did against Calgary in that first round, if that was for real, if that wasn't just Calgary struggling, and again, the argument I think could be made for both. Ottinger could be a top 10 goaltender in the NHL, and Dallas is set for quite some time in net. Now, again, the coach, Peter DeBoer, we'll see how things work out. I know there's a lot of negativity when it comes to DeBoer, but his regular season numbers are pretty good. His ability to win in the regular season is pretty strong, and his teams tend to do all right in the playoffs as well. Jim Nill, the general manager, I've talked about how I've questioned some of Nill's decisions in the past. I still see him doing things that every now and then have me scratching my head. But as long as this team's competitive, a playoff team, and they've got some good young players in the mix, I don't think his job's in any kind of danger. Their leader in goals this past season was Robertson. Jason Robertson with 41 goals. Roope Hintz had 37. If not for that top line with Pavelski, this team might have been bottom 2 in the NHL in scoring. Seriously, that line just drives so much offense. Assists-wise, Pavelski leads with 54. Quite the setup, man. And Robertson second with 38. So a lot of assists for Pavelski, and Robertson on the receiving end. I would think of a number of those assists. Their special teams, 22.4% on the power play, which is above average. Their penalty kill, 79%, a little bit below league average. They'll look to improve that. And again, it's about driving more goals into the net. It is interesting to me that they're 21st in goals for, but their power play was good. So that means there's more struggling 5-on-5. And again, that's why the coaching change makes some sense. Expiring contracts, they've got a few, don't they? Joe Pavelski just signed for one more year, so it's a year-to-year thing. We'll see how he does and if he comes back again next season. Luke Glendening. I really like Luke Glendening's work ethic. I think he was a hard worker for Dallas all season. Yoel Kiviranta, who has not quite gotten back to, the excitement from that overtime goal back in 2020, but still good bottom 6 guy. Tanner Kiro, Joel Hanley, who's been a good depth defenseman for them. And Anton Hudobin's contract comes to an end. I don't have Hudobin in tandem there because he really played himself out last year. And at this point, I believe he's 36. Odds of him beating out Wedgwood for that backup job, not great, but is it possible? Sure. Hudobin's come back from, what looked like an ended career before, so it's possible that Hudobin battles his way into a spot there. But there's also the possibility that to sign Ottinger and to sign Robertson, maybe part of it is getting Hudobin's contract moved out because they can't bury the whole thing in the minors due to how much it's worth. So we'll see what Dallas does. That would definitely buy them some space, but that would probably cost them a prospect or a draft pick to do it. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.